What do you do when the person you love most destroys something you hold dear, not out of malice, but out of a pain you never saw coming? I stood in the wreckage of that moment, staring at the splintered glass of my phone scattered across the marble floor of our penthouse, my heart pounding as the silence between us grew louder than the fight itself. My wife, Elise, stood across from me, her emerald eyes blazing with a mix of fury and regret, her hands trembling from the force of what she'd just done. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I knew that whatever I said next would either break us or bind us closer than ever. We weren't always like this. Elise and I met 5 years ago at a community art gallery, where I was a struggling painter and she was the heiress to a real estate empire. She was drawn to my idealism, my belief that art could change the world, and I was captivated by her fire, her unapologetic ambition. Against all odds, her family's disapproval, my empty bank account, we built a life together. Her wealth made it easy to ignore the cracks in our foundation, but money can't buy understanding, and lately, those cracks had started to show. That night, the argument started over something small. I'd been working late in my studio, lost in a canvas, when she texted me to come home for dinner. I forgot to reply. By the time I walked through the door, she was pacing, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. "You're always somewhere else, Caleb," she snapped, her voice tight with frustration. "This life we have, it's not enough for you, is it?" I tried to explain, to tell her that painting was my way of processing the world, but she wasn't hearing it. The words escalated, each one sharper than the last, until she grabbed my phoneme lifeline to my art, my contacts, my dreams, and hurled it against the wall. The crack echoed like a gunshot. I stared at the wreckage, my anger rising like a tide. That phone wasn't just a device, it held sketches, messages from galleries, my entire creative world. "Elise," I said, my voice low, "do you even know what you just did?" She froze, her face crumpling as if she'd just realized the weight of her action. But before she could speak, the doorbell rang, sharp and intrusive. We both turned, startled. Who could be here at this hour? It was Marcus, my old art professor, a man I hadn't seen in years. He stood in the doorway, his gray beard wild, his eyes bright with an urgency that made my stomach twist. "Caleb," he said, ignoring Elise's presence, "I need you to come with me. Now." I hesitated, glancing at Elise, who looked as confused as I felt. "It's about your work," Marcus pressed. "There's a collector in town, tonight only, who wants to see your portfolio. This could change everything." The timing was absurd, almost surreal, but Marcus's intensity pulled me in. I grabbed my coat, then paused, looking at Elise. "We're not done here," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. She nodded, her lips pressed tight, and I followed Marcus into the night, leaving the shattered phone behind. In the car, Marcus explained that the collector, a reclusive billionaire, had seen one of my pieces online and was offering a life-changing sum for a private showing. My mind raced. This was the break I'd been chasing for years. But as we sped through the city, my thoughts kept drifting back to Elise, to the hurt in her eyes, to the phone she'd destroyed. Why had she snapped like that? It wasn't just about me being late. There was something deeper, something she wasn't saying. The meeting with the collector was a blur. My paintings, propped up in a dimly lit loft, seemed to glow under her scrutiny. She was an older woman, sharp-eyed and quiet, who asked questions that cut straight to the heart of my work. "Your art feels like a search for meaning," she said. "What are you looking for, Caleb?" I fumbled for an answer, my mind still tangled in the fight with Elise. When the collector offered to buy 3 pieces for a sum that would have dwarfed my annual income, I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I felt hollow. Marcus drove me back home, his excitement filling the silence. "You're on your way, kid," he said, clapping my shoulder. But as I stepped into the penthouse, the weight of the night settled over me. Elise was sitting on the couch, the broken phone in her hands, her face streaked with tears. The sight hit me like a punch. I'd never seen her cry like this, not at her father's funeral, not when her company faced a scandal. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." She stopped, her hands tightening around the phone's remains. I feel like I'm losing you. To your art, to your dreams. I'm terrified you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not enough." Her words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. I stood there, stunned, as the pieces of our fight clicked into place. This wasn't about a missed dinner or a phone. It was about her fear, her vulnerability, buried under the weight of her wealth and confidence. I crossed the room and sat beside her, the silence between us heavy but no longer hostile. "Elise," I said, my voice steady, "you're wrong. You're not losing me. But I'm losing myself trying to prove I belong in your world." Her eyes widened, and I pressed on, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I love you, but I can't keep pretending I'm okay with you carrying the weight of our life. I need to build something too, not just for me, but for us." That phone? It wasn't just mine. It was ours. It held every sketch I made for you, every idea I had for our future. The room went silent, the kind of silence that feels like the world holding its breath. Elise stared at me, her eyes searching mine, and for the first time in months, I felt like she truly saw Menet the artist, not the husband she'd saved from poverty, but me. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know it meant that much." We sat there, the broken phone between us, and I realized something. We'd both been fighting to be seen, to matter in a world that kept pulling us apart. Her wealth, my art, they weren't the problem. Our silence was. We'd stopped talking, stopped sharing the fears that gnawed at us. The next morning, we started over. Elise canceled her meetings, and I pushed my canvas aside. We really talked for hours, about her fear of losing me, about my need to create something of my own. We made a plan. I'd use the collector's money to open a small gallery, a space where we could both build something together. It wouldn't erase the cracks in our foundation, but it was a start. As for the phone, we didn't replace it right away. Instead, we kept the broken pieces on the mantel, a reminder of the night we almost lost each other and the words that brought us back. Sometimes, destruction isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something stronger, something real.